So ladies and gentlemen, let's have a super energetic round of applause to welcome Aditya on stage. And with that, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. How many of you had the firni? And how many had the ice cream? And how many had the firni and the ice cream? Come on. You come for a post-lunch session without both? Okay, so my panelists were a little worried that we would end up in a graveyard session. So they said, let's try and get some energy into the room. I have no clue how to do that, and especially if I'm going to follow her, you notice that she was just speaking impromptu, right? And I'm carrying a paper. So that tells you the difference between professionals and amateurs. We're going to try and do two things. One is, instead of having just a panel where, we do a lot of blah, blah, blah sitting on chairs, each of my panelists is going to try and make a small, short presentation. The reason why we are doing this is because while the topic is about emerging technologies, our effort is to convey to you that in these companies, in these categories, it is technology in use today, right? And over the years, I've seen a lot of technologies being spoken about, but rarely used. Our endeavor today is to try and show you that a lot of this is at use right now, right? And we obviously can't do this session without you guys, so we need active participation to make sure that the moderator does not have too much of a role. So if I can just request all of you to keep your phones handy, and as our panelists start to present, please tweet your questions for the session. You can tweet it to my ID, to my handle. It's @ADISAVE, Adi Save. So if you just take the first three letters of my name and then my surname, @ADISAVE, I would request you to tweet your questions when the presentations are happening, when the panel is happening, because those are the questions that we're going to take. I'm not carrying a question bank. So if you don't have questions, we might have a really short session. Works? Works? Great. So please put your hands together for our first panelist, Deepak from HDFC Bank. And you will notice that each of these guys has taken a lot of effort to try and make a really short presentation. Very, very sharp, about one topic only. So please try and put your hands together for Deepak.
Thank you. Good to see you all. Am I audible? Good afternoon. I know lunch has just finished, right? But I represent the bank here. So I'll try and make it interesting. Won't make it very, very boring, financial in nature, okay? So let's look at new priorities in banking. Okay, I had a whole bunch of options to present, but as you would have read in the intro to this part of this conference, there's IoT, there's VR, AR, a whole bunch of stuff, right? But I decided I'll take something that's a little more real, that's a little more close to reality, right? Okay, so raise your hands who took a Uber or a Ola here. Okay. Who ordered from Swiggy, Zomato, Uber Eats last night? Okay, what's the baked-in technology in those two apps, right? It's geolocation, geofencing, geotagging, right? So that's something, let's look at that from a banking point of view. How can I improve customer experience using that, right? And that's very real because all of you all, at least 70% of you all used it last night or this afternoon when you came here, right? So anyway, that's what I'm going to talk about. So it's going to be interesting, nothing financial, no blockchain or anything, so don't worry, okay? So let's go on. Now this is something that every marketeer, I'm a marketing technologist, right? So I have to put all data together, get a single customer, all that boring stuff I have to do as my day job, okay? But this question is very, very important and easy to answer in a bank because as a bank, I know what you ate yesterday, how much you paid for your Ola. I know you ate Chinese, you ate a firni, you went, okay, I don't know if you ate a firni or 10 gulab jamuns, no judgment, okay, I don't know. But I know where you ate, what cuisine you ate, what time you ate, right? So that's an example. Of course, there's a lot of other behavior as well, but let's look at food and dining in this particular example, okay? It'll make it nice, short and crisp, okay? So this is how we are able to identify you regardless of whether you pay with a wallet, pay with a credit card, pay with a third-party product, the bank still knows. I know what you did last night, okay? But this question, who is my customer, can be answered, and it's like an exam question from school. It has multiple five sections. Answer all 5, each section has 2 points. Okay, so to answer all of them. Okay, that's the next part of this question is, where is my customer? This is where the new technology comes in, right? Geolocation, geocoding, geofencing, all that. Now, where's my customer adds one level of richness to your understanding of your customer, right? Now, we have been doing this for some time. Like, all of you all did it just this afternoon when you took a cab here. So what's so new? Is it a new priority? No, I don't think so, right? How can we take this and make it a new priority by adding layers to this and adding complexities to this, which I will try and answer, right? Now, this is also technology that has been around for quite some time. GPS, which on your phone, which is Zomato or Swiggy or Uber uses, was invented in the 70s by the military in the US to track their theater of war, right? But today, we are still using the same exact technology. Then what is the innovation there? There's nothing, it's damn boring, right? So, GPS and tracking where you go, where you are, is something that I will not do. I'm a bank. I cannot do it. That's snooping. That's creepy. That's not something I'm going to present. That's not something I'm trying to do right now. Okay? Of course, with the GPS is on, the battery is also going very fast. Okay? That's a huge problem. Anyway, so this is what we're trying to now answer. This does not involve the GPS at all. Where does my customer spend? Okay? Now, what we have done using this is interesting. Okay? Now, this is what you do. Typically in a day, if you are, the younger you are, the more icons there will be, the more dining out you do, right? So you could be a beer guy, you could be a pizza guy, you could be a coffee shop guy, right? All this, every time you swipe a card, do a UPI payment, you took your debit card out, I know, there's something called a merchant category code. I know what kind of a merchant this guy was. Coffee shop, bar, nightclub. So I'm already building a profile about you, right? Anyway, so what we do is, we apply data science to it and start doing some predictive modeling. Okay, so what happens is I can actually predict today. If you're a guy who eats Chinese on the weekends and goes for a drink every Wednesday night, that's been the story with all old school sales guys in Bombay. Wednesday night, the team goes for a beer, right? So all these patterns start emerging from this data set. So obviously, what we start up doing is, then we start doing targeting and target you with the right offer that you probably would like. So a beer offer in a brewery every Wednesday because I saw the pattern in your data. If you go out for ice cream on a Sunday with your kid, I can predict that. And I can say, okay, here's an offer in your nearby Baskin Robbins. But this is great. We have done this. This is not a new priority. This was something we are able to do today. So how does this become a new priority? Let me give you the problem statement. This is the problem statement, okay? So let's look at a very, very simple segment. Salaried, urban, with a commute, okay? Now, the commuter, this is his office, that's his house. Of course, this obviously is in the middle is your commute, right? Let's look at one guy. I'll call this guy fun-loving. Because typically what he does, gets out of office, hits a bar straight away. He's a fun-loving guy. I can see it in his swipes. Interesting guy. Of course, there is the guy who's family-oriented. He generally dines near his house. Okay, he is taking his family out, right? So this guy is family-oriented, okay? There's the guy who always goes home and he never goes out, the boring guy. But of course, in this example, he's not involved because he's not spending anywhere. I can't track him, do anything about him. So here's what happens when I take an offer. I know you like a beer on a Wednesday. I know you like ice cream on the weekends. The issue is this. All your offers will lie all across your city or your commute. It is not relevant to you. I don't know. This is somewhere like, why would I travel 10 kilometers to get ice cream in Domino's, which is now nowhere near my house? It makes no sense to me, right? So this is the complexity. While I know what you like to eat, what you like to do on your weekends, I have no way of telling you what is geolocated, geofenced to you. This is the problem we need to solve. Okay. So what can you do? Ideally, you'd find a cluster. Cluster of what you do near your house, cluster of what you do near your office. And the cluster is by persona. The fun-loving guy who goes out after his office hours near his office will get this cluster in his messaging. The guy who's more family-oriented is on the other cluster. He should only get that. This clustering is only possible with a lot of hard work. Okay. Now the hard work is basically your KYC data is not accurate in a bank. Your address, never accurate. I know it's a bad scene, but that's just true. So You have to figure out where do you go, where do you eat, geolocate your swipes, geocode your swipes, right? Connect them into a pattern and figure out where you eat, what do you eat. So Chinese in Lower Parel, right? Or Rajasthani in Mumbai, right? These are the things that you want to discern. Okay, so what that happens is that you get relevance out of it, right? But what is the outcome of this relevance, right? Of course, you get better offers as a customer, but what as a bank what is it that I'm a bank, what is the bank trying to achieve here, right? What we are trying to achieve is, let's look at this in a different way. That's a household, this is a business. Okay, if I become relevant to the household, I generate consumption from the household, which means revenue for the merchant or the business. This is me as a bank serving the customer better, right? And using geocoding, geolocation, this is the new priority I'm trying to solve for. In short, that is what we can do in banking today to help you guys out in the next 5 years or so. And we are working towards it. Thank you so much. Hopefully that made sense.
Thank you, Deepak. So only about 10% of the people clapped. Not for me, you should be clapping for him. Thank you to the 5 people who decided to start tweeting. And you've got 4 questions which I already predicted for you. The 5th one is a new one. Deepak made a really nice start. He picked up the context out of what I was talking about. And despite having ready slides, he spoke in context to that. So that's really nice. Thank you, Deepak. The next one is from one of my favorite categories, traditional FMCG, Procter & Gamble. This is Jai Pankaj. Again, this is something new you haven't heard.
Clicker. Okay, thanks Aditya. So I'm going to talk about a technology that is debatable whether it is new, emerging, or old, because frankly it means different things to different people. How many of you are connected with programmatic ad buying? Show of hands? All right. Now, as we started our journey in programmatic in India, we found out that there were different layers to what we perceive as programmatic, right? So at one level, it is just real-time bidding. You're able to buy the ads on an ad exchange like you would do with DV360 or other technologies. But the true programmatic that I'm referring to is really intelligent one-on-one consumer buying, right? Which is informed by some information or intelligence about the audience that you have before you even send it to the exchange, which is often done through a DMP-led buying. And as we try to understand the landscape in India, it occurred to us from our observations that there was plenty of opportunity for us to make this come to life in a meaningful way, right? So take it away from hype to reality. So today what I want to do is talk about 6 observations which India needs to complete the programmatic ecosystem. So, of course, setting the background, this is not new information to you. A lot of people are coming onto the digital platforms and on smartphones. And by 2023 or even sooner, we'll have as many people on digital as we will have on television. Of course, one-to-one programmatic makes sense for everybody. The shopper gets a very personalized experience. As advertisers, we get to target consumers in a very meaningful way. The publisher stands to benefit as well from programmatic, right? Because they would now corner more and more of the ad spends that today goes to traditional media. But for us to be able to do one-to-one targeting, we do need to know enough about the shopper, right? So the data signals need to start coming. Now, what we observed is, while in the West, about half the programmatic buying happens based on either first-party or second-party data. In India, that number is in the single digits, right? Because there is just no precedence or prevalence of publishers sharing data with advertisers, right? In the form of a second-party data. And there are concerns, sometimes rightly or wrongly, about data privacy, security, and so on. But if we look at the West and look at the norms that exist as part of GDPR and others, we can be rest assured that if it works there, it can work here as well in a very privacy-safe way as well. And really, there's win-win for everybody, because as a publisher, if you share data with an advertiser and they model that data and look for those consumers back again, it is likely that they will find those very shoppers on your own platform. So, and you should see the benefit coming through in the form of increased advertising dollars. But that ecosystem does not seem to exist in a very mature way. It's emerging. We're already seeing signs of people opening up more and more, but this is an area that the country needs to look at and the publisher network needs to look at more meaningfully. Second one is, the next two slides are really on the ID graph, right? I think there are some players available right now who can give you, in a very meaningful way, connect all your digital touch points and identify it to a single individual. But there's no way to demonstrate how one ID graph is better than the other. And that's where we need to do more thinking and evidencing to help advertisers make their choices and preferences. And this one is really where nobody exists today, which is connecting different individuals within a household to a single household, right? And most buying happens at the household level, even though the decision-making sometimes can be with the female or the man in the house. But we must be able to trace the individuals, first the screens to an individual, and then the individuals in a household to a unique household, for us to truly benefit from programmatic. And the next one is really all the data that companies like ours have, which is PII data, right, that you get from different sources. How do you take the PII identity and convert that to a digital identifier, like a mobile advertising ID and so on? There is no onboarding service that can truly cover a significant percentage of your first-party data. And that's where we need to fill the gaps. Now, there are suggestions that you can have you can reach out through your CRM platform and make them land on a microsite and capture their digital identity. But because CTRs are always going to be in the single digits, it's not going to be enough by any length. And so this one talks about, all the social engagements that you drive for your brands. There are millions and millions of followers that you generate. But are you able to re-engage with them outside those social platforms? And what could we do to take, let's say, the 100 million viewers who have viewed one of the viral ads that you've created and be able to re-engage with them in a meaningful, ongoing way? That, sadly, is today lacking as well. And the last one is really to do a closed-loop ecosystem. So connecting the media purchase behavior, media buying, media consumption behavior with the purchase behavior is going to be very important. So this calls on e-retailers as well on the online-to-online side to be more open to sharing data on what's happening after you've seen the advertising. Are you able to convert that into a purchase or not? So those were the 6 gaps that we today see in the programmatic world. And of course, as a country, as an ecosystem, we have to come together. To summarize, the first one was more openness to sharing data between publishers and advertisers. And I really believe this is a win-win for everyone involved. The second one was on consumer ID graph. We should be able to connect different devices that an individual is using to a single individual and be able to demonstrate and evidence the effectiveness of those systems. The third one is connecting individuals to a single household, because really buying happens at the household level. The fourth one we talked about was taking all the social data that is available and being able to reuse it for ongoing engagement with the consumers. The fifth one was, if I can just go back. Yeah, so closed looping. So let me start with this one, right? So PII to mobile advertising IDs, and the last one was closed looping, where you can connect the advertising that you're doing to the purchase that the consumer is finally making. Thank you.
So that's the wonder of technology. Massively big companies come to you and say, let's work together. Right? That's what P&G is trying to tell you. Let's work together. Let's try and make tomorrow happen together. My next panelist is a very well-known face, Nikhil Rungta, as country manager of Verizon Media. And I just want to make announcement before he comes on stage. The organizers are really happy with the fact that you guys are tweeting. And so the best 3 tweets get a special gift from the organizers. So the best 3 questions will get a special gift. Thank you. Nikhil.
Okay, thank you so much, Aditya, and the previous panelists. I think they have spoken about 2 very important things: how we can figure out where our customers are, how we can go target them in a scalable, programmatic way. So what I wanted to focus more on is what is the kind of world that all of us are living in today. And I'm calling it marketing in the X, Y, Z world. So what is this world? Okay, so we're living in a world of XR, yin and yang, and Gen Z. Now, XR, AR, VR, AI, ML, I think these are all of these jargons that are thrown at us very often these days. But one of the things that I'm noticing is that I think now in 2019 and very soon in 2020, a lot of these jargons are coming alive. I was talking to Adi before this session, and we were discussing that AI is a 40-year-old concept, but it was in research. And now we are finding how we can actually implement these things. XR, what is XR? XR is extended reality. Today, everything is becoming much more immersive. We are not living in a world where we have to be doing things by touch and feel. We are living in a world where virtual is the new real. So because of the availability of data, because of the availability of newer technology like AI, these kind of new emerging things are coming alive. And I will talk more about it as we go along. And what is yin and yang? I think we again, and these are things coming from the customer point of view. We are living in a world where all of us want to go fast, but we want to be mindful. All of us want to be connected, but we want to disconnect. We want to go higher, but we want to stay grounded. So there is, for every yin, there is a yang. So that's the kind of world we are living in. And Gen Z are people who are the future of India. Probably more than 40% of India is below the age of 21 years. So which means these are the people, what are their aspirations? They are going to become our customers of the future. These are the people. What do they want? They want everything now, on demand. They want no strings attached. You can't put them under contractual stuff. They are very social. Adi is one of them. ADI, that's where you need to tweet. They're very social and very vocal. For them, tomorrow is now. So it's very important to understand who are we going to talk to and who are these people who are going to take these technologies from us. So marketing needs to go from attention to intention. All of us know this is the age of nano attention. We just, keep on moving up, scrolling things up and down, and it's very difficult for every marketer, every agency person, every advertiser sitting in the room. How do I hold that attention? Few years back, I used to hear that, the average attention span of a person is less than 9 seconds, which is lesser than that of a goldfish. My feeling is it's now probably 1 or 2 seconds. So we need to figure out, how do we live in this world? What are the things? So we need to be part of that world. And that's why what happens in intention is that it's not that a mindless scroll driven by algorithms and you see some brand ad and you go and click on it. Today is the world where you want to also go to users, like you see in this video, who are actually looking for something. It is purposeful, it is meaningful, and then when you engage with them, it's a deeper emotional connect. So we are moving from the world of attention to a world of intention. What else is going on? I think marketing needs to go from action to interaction. Gone are those days where all of us were, I'm sure all of you have been in those debates. What should be the color of my CTA? Should it be orange because Amazon does that? Should it be green because Flipkart does that? So we were in that world, but today, as we can see, it is more and more about how can we get our users to interact and then take an action. One example that comes to my mind is, I'm sure a lot of you use different mobile wallets, UPI platforms. So once you make a purchase, you get a cashback. It could easily have been, hey, you've got 50 rupees cashback, but what do? They send you a digital scratch card. They make you rub on your screen, and then the cashback appears. So what are they trying to do is make the connection deeper. So they are making you interact with their brand a little more. And finally, I think this is what XR, AR, ML is now enabling. And these are all, guys, real examples. These are formats that are available today, and people can actually start using them. Essentially, I'm doing up a new house, and I want to buy furniture for the house. I'm not too sure. I can actually now, take this. I see an ad. This is a brand in US called Pottery Barn. When I was buying furniture for my house, I had used the Urban Ladder, and they had this app. Then now there is an ad format where I could just, with the help of AR, take that particular piece of furniture and see how it will look like against the color of my wall, the size. So I can, it's all spatial and volumetric. So these are things which are real now. These are not things that we are imagining anymore. It's very critical that now we start figuring out as marketers, as advertisers, as agencies, how we can take this to this next level. So are you ready for this XYZ world? Thank you.
Very typical of Nikhil to end with a question. He's after that prize, I think. Okay, the last panelist, we have Tushar from Z5. And I just want to say, I'm getting a lot of repeat questions, and that's absolutely okay. Just try and word it in a manner that you actually would love an answer. So if I can just read out the question as is, that's the best thing you can hope for. I have less work to do. Great. So Tushar from Z5. Hey, only 3 people clap.
Good afternoon, everyone. This Saturday, my family was not here. They were out on the Diwali vacations to my wife's home in Darjeeling. And I was with my cat in my office. And my cat, in the office, there are these wires that keep going under the floor. And he somehow found a space, and he went inside that whole thing, and it's like a jungle of wire, and he's all going finding a mouse or I don't know what. I was looking for him for about 4 hours, couldn't find him, and saw that hole and realized I'm sure he has gone inside. So I took my camera, took a torch, found him, and while I was taking him out, there was a lot of dust that came into me, so I have cold and I might not sound very good, so please excuse me for that. And thank you for listening to the story. Here, what I'm trying to do is trying to tell you how Z5 as a content company is trying to bring content into the experience that you are having, while you are watching the content. And there is a lot of things that happen in the background. This is all lots of pipelines that we have created to extract the real meta of a content, right? So this particular pipeline, which we call, is a video summary pipeline. What we are trying to do is from a 22-minute episode, we're trying to crunch and create a 5 to 7 minute episode, all right? And we have used absolutely new and emerging AI technologies, machine learning. So we have fed our engine and algorithms with about 300,000 hours of data. 300,000 hours of content has gone into this machine learning algorithm, where all kinds of ZTV serials, right from Hum Paanch to Kundali Bhagya, which is still running since past 7 years, all those episodes have gone in. Now, every new episode that comes in goes into this pipeline. The system is able to figure out what are the high points of an episode and is able to create a 5-minute episode so that we don't lose out a person who has come to watch or is trying to watch 3 or 4 days of backlog of a soap opera. So instead of watching 66 minutes of the whole thing, you are able to watch it in about 12 to 17 minutes. And then we crunch this even more and we create something called as a week in short. All right? Now, all of this, while we are creating this episode, we are also able to run it through another pipeline where we run the system and all the content through image processing, through voice processing, and are able to figure out emotions inside a particular scene. Let's say, first of all, we are able to define a scene, and then we are able to figure out emotions that are going inside the scene. Now, here is where the whole marketing angle and the recommendation angle and everything else comes into play. So if I know that this person is watching a particular scene, and you know how Indian, especially ZTV serials are, and other Z serials, you remember that tarang, tarang. So if I see that this guy is watching that again and again, and the emotion there is comedy, or the emotion there is drama, or the emotion there is something else, I know which ad to be able to show this particular person. I know what is if this guy likes a particular character more, I know which video to recommend to this particular person. And that brings me from a marketing angle to be able to up my metric, whether it is to send a notification to the user at the start of the day or at the end of the day, or when I know he watches the most, that which episode to watch, either to bring him from a free AVOD user into a SVOD. If, let's say, if he used to like Arjun Rampal, and we got a series made with Arjun Rampal called as Final Call, I know to tell this particular person that, Arjun Rampal is here, come, why don't you buy the 99 rupee pack and watch this particular episode. So what we are trying to do is to use AI and ML to each and every piece of the content, which is the image, the voice, and the flow. We are able to figure out the characters inside it. We are able to figure out the emotions inside it. It took us about 9 to 10 months to get this right, especially for Tamil and Telugu. These two languages were very, very difficult. The emotion is difficult. The skin is slightly darker. The image recognition algorithms had to be tweaked to be able to figure out who this particular character is automatically. We are now do about 300 hours of episodes every day. Out of these 300 hours of episodes, we run through our machine learning, which for each hour, we take about 6 minutes to figure out the meta, the content, and everything else around it. And then create this beautiful marketing layer on top of it to be able to attract users better. Thank you.
Thank you, Tushar. We'll just take a minute to arrange the chairs. So Tushar mentioned something in passing, and it struck me. He said, skin tones are darker, and image recognition is slightly more difficult. That explains why Facebook is not able to tag me very well. Anyway, I would like to request all my 4 panelists to please come up on stage. As expected, they've done a really good job. Please give a big hand. Deepak, Nikhil, Jay, Tushar, please. So it's customary for moderators to say at the end of the session, thank you for being such a lovely audience. I want to say it right before we start this panel. You've been a wonderful audience so far. You've made my job absolutely simple. I have about 28 questions, and I obviously can't cover all of them. But what I also understand from the organizers is that if I don't ask a question of my own, next time they don't need me. Right? So I'm going to start off with one of my own questions. I'm going to try and keep it short, and I expect all these guys to answer very quickly, and then we'll take on your questions. So my question to all of you is, in one line, if you can explain the mantra that your company or your team uses to think about technology within marketing in your setup. Deepak first.
I think I touched upon it in my slides, right, which is customer service. Okay, there's an overall bank strategy. There's a strategy company has. A lot of us have been in these brand purpose workshops. Our brand purpose is to solve for financial needs of our customers, right? So you take that in, and I said in my presentation, you help the customer find an offer. You get the merchant who's doing business, like a restaurateur, to generate more revenue. And we enable that using geotagging, geocoding, AI, VR, AR, whatever it is. So your overall strategy, your overall brand purpose has to drive your technology investments and not the other way around. A lot of people fail that way.
So your brand purpose is to use technology to drive dhanda. No, that's fine, because the next person who's going to answer this question is a Marwadi guy. So, Nikhil.
English speaking Marwadi. So I think the purpose of our company has been, and you saw some of the stuff that I spoke about, is in today's world, again, the XYZ world that we're talking about, it's all about trust and transparency. And trust is not only, from a user point of view, trust about how is my data being used, who is tracking me, where am I eating, why is this guy knowing about it, whether it was a firni or a gulab jamun. So I think there is a lot of trust needed there. If I'm an advertiser, I want to know where is my ad being placed. Is it in a brand safe environment? I want to know with full transparency if the kind of impressions or if the kind of spots being promised to me are being put out there. So I think this is a world where, we all know about fake news and a lot of the stuff that is happening around various things. Trust and transparency, we believe, is going to become more and more important. And that's something that we put at the top of the pile for us when we are thinking about our business.
Yeah, for us, I think the mantra continues to be to keep the consumer at the center, right? And technology just allows us to do that even better, because we have so many different signals about the consumer. We'll be able to personalize and offer to the consumer what she truly wants. So our mantra remains the same, with or without technology. Technology just allows us to do it in a far better way.
For Z5, the mantra is to create hyper-personalized and a very engaged experience for the consumer. And technology is at the foundation of it to be able to enable this particular experience. That's how we see it.
Awesome. Okay, moving on with these questions. So Deepak, as expected, you get a first one.
Yes.
You use a lot of technology. You know a lot about your customers. How do you balance information with privacy?
So we don't capture that you ate 10 gulab jamuns last night, okay? We don't know. We know you went to a restaurant, okay? We know how much you spend. But the idea is to leverage this to give you more relevance, okay? Like I said, the GPS on your mobile app is not always on. We could keep it on. We could track you at a railway station, okay? Where you go for vacation, all that. But we specifically don't. Why? Because in marketing, although I'm a marketing champion internally in technology or whatever, we can't be creepy. We have to always have the customer at the center. If by using technology, I am not invading the privacy, but I'm helping you get a better deal or get better value for money, I think that is fair game. But if I'm finding out things about it that I should not, that is going to be completely outside of my technology investments altogether.
So I'm an HDFC customer, and I asked him this question when I saw the first version of this slide deck, right? So all of us worry about the fact that I want to know more about my customers, but I don't want to be the customer who's found out about, right? So, and that remains the challenge with technology. So Jay, next question goes to you. We are an industry which looks largely at share of voice, right? And with technology, you can actually move a couple of steps forward. So how do you go from share of voice to share of influence?
I think in our industry, of course, we have done our media planning in the past based on share of voice as one of the parameters, but increasingly, the thinking has been that we need to move away from that and really focus on reach, which will give us the best mileage for our dollars. Now, on share of influence, again, this is by creating very relevant content, a very high impact content, and engaging them in a very personalized way, right? That is going to create the right influence for our brands.
Great, thanks. Tushar, there's a very long question for you, actually. I won't read out the entire question, but the crux of it is, to what extent does AI and ML influence what I watch on your platform?
If you are coming for the first time, we don't know you. So just the location is what we figure out what you would watch. And, Z5 is in about 12 languages in India. And so we are very regional heavy. So we are able to at least predict that there is no AI in that, first of all. Once you start watching, the machine does learn about you and does try to predict. But then if you are, not really getting up to the speed to the machine, then there are different algorithms. So we have about 2,200 segments in which we put the customer. And so you keep moving the segment in real time. So almost 100% is what I would say, yeah.
100%?
Yeah.
Wow. So there goes choice, right? Nikhil, you mentioned a series of very intelligent sounding phrases. Attention to intention, action to interaction, engagement to immersion. How do you know that you have arrived at these?
Sorry?
How do you know that you have arrived from, the first one is easy, right? Attention is easy as a metric. How do you know you have arrived at the last one?
I think it starts from the first slide, which was all about the XYZ world that we are living in. It is, again, to even Jay's point, how is the customer today? If it is the Gen Z or millennials, whoever we are talking about, how are they behaving? How are they using the content? Everybody has a very fleeting attention span. So it means it is very, very crucial. If you want to engage them, you need to get them to interact with your brand. If you want to engage them, you need to have a deeper immersion where they are actually trying to figure out what they want. Lastly, I would say, for us, it's important that somebody has shown an intention because he's passionate or has an interest about something, which means if he's going through an article, he's looking at a video, it is through intention. And it is more meaningful if he then discovers something on the site, which the article was about. So that's how, and we have seen, in fact, if I was to talk some numbers, when we see the amount of transactions, interactions, or sharing, or even clicking on ads goes up by anywhere between 20 to 50% if you follow some of these things. So this seems like the new kind of age. We call it the age of experience, the age of intent, which is now emerging.
So it makes it easier for you to find out intent rather than just a profile of a customer, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Jay was very nice in his presentation, and he spoke about the intent to collaborate, and therefore there's one question that came. I expected this to happen, but I'm going to reword it anyways. Do you need intermediaries, or can you work directly with owners of data?
Yeah, I think programmatic already cuts out many intermediaries in the chain, right? So if the publisher and advertiser partner on data sharing, there is a lot of intelligence that then gets associated with the process of programmatic ad buying. And then it is all about sending that audience onto the exchange and finding those audiences on the platform. The intermediaries that remain in that chain then becomes an enabler to execution more than anything else. So I wouldn't worry really about the data being stolen or compromised or being misused in any way. It's going to eventually be a win-win for both the publisher and the advertiser. On the advertiser side, you would know far better about the audience that you're trying to reach. On the publisher side, you can expect bigger share of the ad spend that the advertiser is trying to make.
And it's on a moving scale.
Can I just add to what Jay just mentioned? I think it's also whose vantage point are you seeing it from? And I was in the morning panel, and there's a similar question came up, and Puneet from Times Internet. So the question that was asked us that should there be intermediaries versus direct? So if you take from the vantage point of the advertiser, programmatic works. If you take from the vantage point of the publisher, because I want better eCPMs and I want to have a better control, I want a direct relationship. So I think it's also, the world is going. Probably we'll have to come to a point where, it's a true win-win for everybody.
I just think a direct relationship is not necessarily the future, because you have to be part of the ecosystem, because the shopper or the viewer that you're trying to reach is not available on a single platform. So unless we are able to identify the same shopper as one across the different platforms that there exist, there is always going to be inefficiencies. So direct publisher to advertiser buying is not the future. And of course, we need to set the guardrails so that everyone in the ecosystem benefits versus just one party win.
I just want to step back and say the word intermediary itself is open to interpretation, right? So because a lot of people who think of themselves as owners of content or owners of platforms are not really owners, they're just aggregators, right? So in that sense, they are not owners either. So if somebody else gets replaced by them, they can get replaced by somebody else too. You mentioned inefficiencies, and intermediaries perhaps are very useful, especially in technology early on, emerging technologies early on, to be able to remove inefficiencies, right? So Deepak, there's one question for you around the fact, how do you reduce inefficiency? So how do you actually improve accuracy in the geofencing that you have done to be able to find as close to confident as possible information about your users?
So I'm part of the marketing team. Okay, now I'm answering a technology question, but the solution lies in the people. So I belong to a marketing team which has 30 data scientists. We have about 8 machines that cost 10 lakh rupees each just to crunch the data. This is beyond what we do on the cloud, by the way, right? So efficiency, accuracy is an outcome of investing in people with gray matter, backing them with hardware, software, making IT do the work for you to get all this stuff in place, and that is when you get it. So it's a combination of people, technology, and the will to execute.
Thank you, Deepak. There is this clock that I'm seeing here. I don't know if anybody from the organizers is around. I'm going to respect this one, right? So we're going to try and close with one last question to all the panelists. So to each one of you, if you had to put your bets on one emerging technology today, with the next 24 months as your timeline, right? One emerging technology that will become really big in your businesses in the next 24 months. What would you bet on? I'm not even asking why. What would you bet on?
AI, an outcome of huge amounts of machine learning.
Okay.
So I think connected with what Deepak said and what I mentioned, the XR of the XYZ, XR, which basically means augmented reality, virtual reality. A lot of these things are now actually becoming real. So we are looking forward to that. Maybe not even 24 months, maybe in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll see more of that.
In our business, I really believe that programmatic is going to scale now. The way we measure the success of programmatic is the percentage of digital dollars that are routed through programmatic. And when I say programmatic, I don't mean the real-time bidding that happens in walled gardens as well, but true one-on-one marketing informed by enough signals about the shopper, right? That is going to grow come what may.
I agree with Jay. I think ad tech is the future. The next 5 years, if digital is not able to bring in the transparency and the confidence and take the share of money from broadcast or paper to digital, it's going to be a big bubble burst. There is revenue that is needed in digital, and that, as far as India is concerned, is only going to come from advertising.
So if you were to pick one for the next 2 years, what would you pick?
So for example, we are investing heavily on optimizing the way we are giving ads to the customers, creating a data exchange where we are able to give full transparency to the advertiser, so that advertiser doesn't have to then look for that shopper completely separately at another place. So they are able to retarget that same shopper in some other publisher, or if that publisher is also transparent enough, then retarget that same shopper in our platform as a publisher, because that is where the value of digital is. And that's how money is going to come into digital economy. That's how I see it. If we don't invest in ad tech, if we don't bring in transparency, money will not come. Everything else is just a sham. I mean, except for banking person, just talking about the digital side of it.
So, as you saw, each of them gave you a different area of technology for focus, and that's essentially the reality of today. that each of these areas is nascent enough for someone to make a real big splash in them. I think that's the takeout that at least I'm taking away from this session. Because when I work with startups, for example, there isn't one tomorrow. There are so many tomorrows possible, and each one can succeed in their own domains, right? So that's the beauty of it. I just want to make one submission here. We had decided that we'll talk about technology from the point of view of business metrics. And all these guys, that's all they all knew, right? That they're going to talk about that. But because you've been such a wonderful audience and you've asked so many questions, we didn't even get to the topic, right? So thank you for being such a lovely audience. And to all my panelists, thank you so much for all the pre-work you did, as well as being so sporting about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.